The training hall of the Hunters Guild fell silent as Commander Lysandra Storm strode across the sparring floor, her crimson coat billowing behind her like a war banner. Every eye in the crowded gymnasium turned to watch. She commanded attention the way lightning commanded the sky, beautiful and terrible in equal measure. "That's pathetic," her voice rang out, sharp enough to cut glass. "Is this really the best the guild can produce?" At the center of her scorn stood a man in worn gray training gear, his dark hair falling across his face as he straightened from the training dummy he'd been working on. He was unremarkable in every way: average height, lean build, quiet demeanor. The kind of hunter who blended into crowds and never made waves. His name was Marcus Thorne, and he held the lowest combat rank in the entire facility, F class. "Commander Storm," one of the junior instructors began nervously. "He was just wasting everyone's time," Lysandra cut him off. She circled Marcus like a predator assessing prey, her ice-blue eyes gleaming with disdain. 3 years in the guild and you're still F class, still assigned to equipment maintenance and cleanup duty. Tell me, Thorne, do you even know which end of a sword to hold?" Marcus said nothing. He simply met her gaze with dark eyes that betrayed no emotion, then looked away, reaching for the towel on the bench beside him. That silence only fueled Lysandra's contempt. She'd built her reputation on perfection, youngest person ever promoted to commander, leader of the guild's most elite strike team, holder of 17 dungeon-clearing records. Weakness offended her on a fundamental level, and Marcus Thorne embodied everything she despised about the lower ranks. "Look at him," she announced to the gathered crowd of hunters. "This is what happens when the guild accepts anyone with a pulse. No pride, no drive, just dead weight dragging down our reputation." A few nervous laughs rippled through the audience. Most hunters avoided meeting Marcus's eyes, uncomfortable with the public humiliation but too afraid of Lysandra's wrath to speak up. Lysandra ignored the murmurs. An idea had formed in her mind, a perfect way to illustrate her point about the guild's declining standards. She turned to the side entrance where 5 figures stood watching, their presence like shadows given form. The Apex Hunters. They were the guild's ultimate weapon, 5 elite warriors who operated outside normal command structures, called upon only for the most dangerous dungeons and catastrophic monster outbreaks. Each wore black combat gear marked with crimson streaks, their faces partially concealed by tactical masks. "Apex Team," she called out, her voice dripping with confidence. "I have a special training exercise for you. I want you to teach Mr. Thorne here what it means to be a real hunter. Nothing lethal, of course, just enough to show him, and everyone watching, the difference between true warriors and those who should have never been accepted into the guild." The training hall went deathly quiet. Apex hunters against an F class? It was like asking wolves to educate a rabbit. Several people in the crowd shifted uncomfortably, but no one dared challenge Commander Storm's order. Marcus still hadn't moved. He stood with the towel in his hands, expression unreadable. The 5 Apex hunters exchanged glances, then stepped forward onto the sparring floor. Their leader, a tall man known only as Flint, moved with predatory grace as he approached Marcus. The crowd backed away, forming a wide circle. "Nothing personal," Flint said quietly, his hand moving to the blade at his hip. "Just following orders." Marcus finally looked up, meeting the Apex hunter's eyes. For a moment, something flickered in his expression, resignation, perhaps, or maybe acceptance. He reached behind him to where his training staff leaned against the wall, except it wasn't a training staff. The weapon he drew was a simple longsword in a plain black sheath, unmarked except for a small symbol wrapped around the guard. A coiled serpent devouring its own tail, etched in faded silver that looked ancient beyond measure. Flint froze mid-step. His eyes locked onto that symbol, and the color drained from his face like water from a broken vessel. "Wait!" he breathed, so quietly only those nearest could hear. Then louder, urgent, "Wait!" He threw his arm out, stopping his 4 teammates in their tracks. They looked at him in confusion, but Flint wasn't watching them. His eyes were fixed on that symbol, and his hand trembled as he slowly raised it in a gesture that made the entire hall gasp. Flint, leader of the Apex Hunters, dropped to one knee. "Sir," he said, his voice rough with something that sounded like fear. "We didn't know. Forgive us." The other 4 Apex Hunters stared at their leader in shock. One of them, a woman with a scarred cheek named Raven, leaned forward. "Flint, what are you?" Then she saw the symbol. Her eyes went wide and she too dropped to one knee. One by one, the remaining 3 Apex Hunters recognized the mark and followed suit until all 5 of the guild's most feared warriors knelt before the quiet F-class hunter. Lysandra's confident smirk had frozen on her face. "What is this? What are you doing? I gave you an order." Flint didn't even glance at her. "Commander Storm, with all due respect, you don't understand what you've done." Lysandra's voice rose with indignation. "Get up, this is insubordination." "That symbol," Raven said quietly, still kneeling. "It's the mark of the Ouroboros unit." The name meant nothing to most of the crowd, but several of the older hunters gasped. The instructor who tried to defend Marcus earlier had gone pale as death. "The Ouroboros unit was disbanded," Lysandra snapped, though uncertainty had crept into her voice. "That was 12 years ago after the Abyssal Gate incident. They were all killed." "Not all of them," Flint said. He finally looked up at Marcus, who stood motionless with the sheathed blade in his hand. "One survived, the youngest member, a 17-year-old kid who just earned his promotion when the gate opened." His voice dropped. "The only person to ever walk out of an S-rank dungeon alone, carrying the bodies of his fallen teammates on his back." The silence in the training hall was absolute. "His name was classified," Raven continued. "The Guild Council buried the records, declared the whole unit KIA. They said it was to protect him, that if the world knew someone had survived the Abyssal Gate, every enemy organization would hunt him down to learn how he did it." Lysandra's ice-blue eyes swung to Marcus, really looking at him for the first time. He still hadn't moved, still held that ancient blade with its coiled serpent mark. "That's impossible," she said, but her voice had lost its commanding edge. "If he was that powerful, why would he be F-class? Why work maintenance duty?" "Because," came a new voice from the entrance, "I ordered him to." Everyone turned to see Guild Master Brennan cross entering the hall, his massive frame filling the doorway. The old warrior's face was grim as he walked toward the frozen tableau. "Commander Storm," Brennan said with dangerous calm. "My office, now. Guild Master, I was just... now." Lysandra flinched but held her ground. "Not until someone explains what's happening here. If this man is so dangerous, why have you kept him in the lowest rank? Why the deception?" Brennan was quiet for a long moment. Then he sighed, suddenly looking every one of his 60 years. "Because he asked me to." The abyssal gate broke something in him, not his skill or his power, but his will to fight. He came to me 12 years ago, covered in the blood of his friends, and he begged me for one thing: let him fade into obscurity. Let him exist in peace, away from the killing, away from the expectations. The guild master's eyes found Marcus. So I gave him what he wanted: an F-class rank, simple duties, anonymity, the chance to be nobody special. His expression hardened. And I made it very clear to the few people who knew his identity that he was to be left alone. That order, Commander Storm, apparently didn't reach you. Lysandra's face had gone from pale to flushed with humiliation. Around the training hall, whispers had erupted as hunters pulled out phones, searching for information about the Ouroboros unit. The Abyssal Gate was an S-rank dungeon that appeared in the heart of Moscow, an older hunter named Davis was saying. It was supposed to be a routine high-level clear. The Ouroboros unit was the best of the best, famous throughout the guild. But something went wrong. The dungeon was a trap designed by an ancient monster with intelligence. All 12 members of the unit were slaughtered, except one. Flint still knelt before Marcus. "Sir, if I may ask, why did you never correct the commander? Why allow her to humiliate you?" For the first time, Marcus spoke. His voice was quiet, worn smooth by years of disuse in matters that mattered. "Because she was right. I am weak. I am useless." He looked down at the blade in his hands. "I survived the Abyssal Gate, but my team didn't. I've spent 12 years asking myself why. What made me worthy of survival when warriors far better than me died? You know that's not," Flint began. "I failed them," Marcus continued, cutting him off. "My power, my skill, what good was any of it? I was the youngest, the least experienced, and I lived while they died protecting me." His fingers tightened on the sheath. "So yes, I'm F-class. I deserve to be F-class. This rank is my penance." The raw pain in his words silenced the entire hall. Even Lysandra had no response, her earlier arrogance completely deflated. Brennan stepped forward, placing a massive hand on Marcus's shoulder. "You've punished yourself long enough, son. 12 years is long enough." "I disagree." "Well, I'm pulling rank." The guild master's voice firmed. "As of this moment, your anonymity is compromised. The whole guild will know by sunset. So you have a choice: continue hiding in maintenance, where every hunter will now whisper about you, or accept a proper assignment. Return to what you were meant to be." Marcus's jaw clenched. "I can't, I won't." "Then at least defend yourself," Brennan said gently. "Commander Storm challenged you publicly. The Apex Hunters have shown you respect. Don't dishonor their gesture or your fallen team's memory by refusing to acknowledge what you are." Something shifted in Marcus's expression. Pain warred with pride, grief with duty. Slowly, almost reluctantly, his hand moved to the blade's grip. "One demonstration," Brennan said. "Show them why the Apex Hunters kneel. Then if you still wish it, I'll find you a place where you can have peace. You have my word." The silence stretched. Then Marcus's eyes found Lysandra, who stood frozen between shame and defiant pride. "Commander Storm," he said quietly, "you called me weak, useless, dead weight." He drew the blade 6 inches from its sheath, and the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Frost formed on the windows. Several hunters stumbled backward, suddenly struggling to breathe under the weight of killing intent that had filled the air like poison gas. The blade itself seemed to drink in light, its edge so sharp it looked like a tear in reality. "You were wrong about one thing," Marcus continued, his voice still quiet but carrying an edge that made even Brennan tense. "I'm not weak because I lack power. I'm weak because I refuse to use it. There's a difference. He slid the blade back into its sheath, and immediately the oppressive atmosphere vanished. Hunters gasped for air. They hadn't realized they were struggling to draw. Lysandra had dropped to her knees, ice spreading across the floor around her from where her body's moisture had crystallized in the air. Her face was ghost white, her eyes wide with primal terror. She'd felt it, the abyss of power that Marcus held leashed inside him, the darkness that came from walking through hell and coming out the other side. She tried to speak, failed, tried again. I apologize, I didn't know, I couldn't have known. No, Marcus agreed. You couldn't, but you also didn't need to know. You chose cruelty when kindness would have cost you nothing. He looked around the hall at the gathered hunters, many of whom now regarded him with awe and fear in equal measure. I am F-class by choice, not circumstance. Remember that before you judge those you think beneath you. You never know what battles they've already survived. He turned to leave, but Flint spoke up. Sir, wait, the Apex Hunters. We would be honored if you would consider joining our unit or leading it. We could use someone of your caliber. No, Marcus's refusal was absolute. I appreciate the respect, but I'm done with teams, done with command, done with responsibility for other people's lives. His expression softened slightly. But thank you, your gesture meant more than you know. Brennan stepped forward. Marcus, at least consider a consultation role. Your experience is 12 years out of date. The guild has moved on. So should I. He headed toward the exit, then paused. But guild master, if I may make one request. Anything. Don't bury this. Let the story spread. Let every F-class hunter in the guild know that rank doesn't define worth. That power without compassion is worthless. That the strongest person in the room isn't always the one everyone notices. His eyes found Lysandra one last time. And let the commanders know that humility isn't weakness, it's wisdom. With that, Marcus Thorne walked out of the training hall, leaving behind a stunned silence and a story that would spread through the guild like wildfire. Commander Lysandra Storm remained on her knees for a long time after he left, staring at the frost patterns on the floor where her fear had crystallized the air itself. She'd commanded Apex Hunters, cleared dozens of high-rank dungeons, built a reputation as one of the guild's brightest stars. And in less than 10 minutes, a quiet F-class hunter had taught her that she knew nothing about true strength. The Apex Hunters slowly rose to their feet, Flint's hand unconsciously touching his weapon as if reassuring himself it was still there. We're lucky he refused, he said quietly. If we'd actually attacked him. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Everyone in that hall had felt the killing intent, the dark well of power that Marcus had revealed for just a moment. In the days that followed, the story spread exactly as Marcus had predicted. F-class hunters across the guild walked a little taller, secure in the knowledge that rank was just a number. Commanders grew more cautious about public humiliation, never quite sure if the quiet hunter in the corner might be hiding depths they couldn't fathom. And in the equipment maintenance section, in a small office far from the training halls and briefing rooms, Marcus Thorne returned to his work cataloging replacement parts and organizing supply shipments. But his blade, with its coiled serpent mark, symbol of the legendary Ouroboros unit, remained within reach, just in case the world ever needed him to remember what he'd once been, just in case forgetting became more dangerous than remembering. Because sometimes the most powerful choice isn't using your strength, it's choosing when not to.